All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, How SeatGeek Built Out Robust Automated Reporting Using Zapier. I know you probably have a lot of things you could be doing right now, so we really appreciate your time spending it with us.
And thanks so much, Teddy, for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I know SeatGeek's been using Zapier for, I think, more than 3 years now, and you have over 50 people contributing to Zapier workflows in some way. Just to set the stage here for the folks joining us, can you tell us a little bit about the teams that are using it and the apps that they're connecting?
Yeah, sure. I think we've used Zapier as a great kind of easy self-serve way for kind of the more people who interact with a lot of business data at SeatGeek to really help connect our various systems. We employ a lot of third-party SaaS providers. I think where some of that can break down is it's great to have your new shiny tool, but can it integrate with other workflows, processes, and get data from other systems. So I'd say some of our most active connections are around our business intelligence repository Looker, which sits on top of Amazon Redshift.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of other things around the Google Suite, Google Drive, Google Sheets, Calendar. And then we have some other useful things around productivity and task management routing with Salesforce, Asana, and a lot of other connections through kind of parsing out what's going on in emails with certain filters and routing that information throughout the org.
That's awesome. Really, it was interesting. We got a chance to talk earlier this week just to hear about all the various use cases. And you mentioned one just there around task routing. I wonder if we could dig into that a little bit. But before we do, maybe just to help folks understand, like what were some of the challenges or problems you were facing in that area of task routing?
Yeah, I would say SeatGeek's always been very scrappy. We were a startup back in 2009, and I think we've always been lean on the staffing side. So we've really really relied on third-party tools instead of developing, kind of one tool internally. And we've also really let groups kind of decide what kind of technology stack that each department within each department, each group, could be. We have Jira, we've got Asana, GitHub, GitLab, all these different things. So you have information all over the place, but as it got more important for SeatGeek to have more cross-functional workflows and a lot of people working together, really kind of bringing that data together and kind of minimizing the kind of download, copy, paste workflows that could arise, and kind of automating that and to kind of keep the kind of least human touches on data, not only makes things more fast and efficient, but also I think reduces errors quite a bit.
Gotcha. So just to summarize that, it sounds like you on the pro side of it, everybody can use the software that works best for them, the best of breed software. The downside of that is then you have all of these different SaaS apps with information that is important to your business spread out across them. Can you talk a little bit about how Zapier helped you all with that?
Yeah, I'd say I think a lot of times it might be where that someone essentially on a financial planning analysis team is the person who runs Zapier within our company. But I think it was really led or arose from our need to be that group that has the source of truth information within the company. And we see HR data with our HRS. We work with the hiring plan, we work with the IT team, we work with the CX team on understanding their ticket volumes and where their tickets are coming from and how they can also kind of drive value for the company. So how can you drive down ticket volume by like more efficient routing or understanding where which channels are reaching out and so on. So I'd say what we did was kind of look at what the landscape, what could be something that was simple enough for us to use, think more drag, we have workflows we want in our mind, but can we have a more kind of drag and drop, simple GUI to kind of piece together, all these different automations. So we didn't want to be, writing code or having someone just totally dedicated to connecting all of our connections.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And you did mention like you're in finance, but do you have an engineering background? Is that like what enabled you to do all this with Zapier, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Not an engineering background. I just say just a natural kind of curious mindset. I think I'm very into understanding being very productive and doing things more efficiently. I think just finance as a practice has gone from kind of a more accounting-based, kind of counting numbers, closing the books, to really providing value within the organization and being kind of business partners to various groups and helping them work better. And I think when we go in and work with the team on saying, hey, not only what's your budget, but kind of how are you thinking about designing your org? And we see things that maybe aren't being done as efficiently as they could be. I think that's where we've kind of put on our consulting hats to either bring certain workflows within Zapier, or just kind of help them set up better spreadsheets and populate those spreadsheets with data from different systems.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm wondering if we could dive into maybe a few specific examples of how task routing Zapier has helped you with that task routing. Are there any specific examples you could share with the attendees?
I'll take a couple. So I think SeatGeek kind of evolved from just being a consumer marketplace, kind of a great way to find tickets to any type of event. It's also powering what we call a full stack ticketing provider. So we actually provide that box office software for some large enterprises to sell tickets. For example, Dallas Cowboys, New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans. So we have a whole B2B component as well. So I think on the enterprise side of the business, we have a Salesforce CRM. So we have a lot of kind of events and activities going on there. And then kind of the rest of the business, the G&A functions and the consumer business, I think we use Asana a lot. So I think for a lot of these cross-functional projects, we have a lot of tasks in Jira as well as Salesforce, but I think I've been pushing to kind of use Asana as the main way to bring all that information together and kind of be the source of truth for productivity and for project planning. So I think we have some zaps, for example, in Salesforce, where we're looking for certain keywords or certain assignees, certain account, or getting into CRM speak, accounts or opportunities, kind of new business we're trying to drive.
Right.
And depending on various criteria, kind of routing those tasks or kind of notifying that certain things happened in those systems so that other actions could be kicked off. So for example, we could have we have another thing that sits on top of Salesforce called Troops. And if we kind of sign a new client, it will kick off, it will send an email. That email will trigger with Zapier to go into Asana and it'll say, hey, it will send a link to a contract, it will send the link to the deal model, and like this has to be done. And it could have 10 different subtasks kind of route it to different people.
Gotcha. And all of that is set up with different zaps. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, gotcha. So if I summarize that, it sounds like Asana has become that like main interface you use for productivity and how you're connecting all your tasks. And there's all these other disparate systems, and you're using Zapier to funnel it into that one place. So it's easier for people to sort of like manage it. That's interesting. Can you share a little bit about like what impact has that particular set of zaps had for SeatGeek?
Yeah, I would say it's on the kind of more qualitative side, it's really helped kind of help the finance team in particular kind of build trust within the organization to be able to say like, hey, not only can we be your budgeting business partners, but also kind of help your kind of project management, help your org do better. I think it's also enabled much more robust analyses within the org. So for something that's imagine a set of data where if you had a very manual process that to update those sets of models, you're spending 80% of your time just actualizing data and moving data around. You can kind of flip that and say, maybe now 20% is kind of transforming data and staying on top of it, which allows you to have kind of 80% of your time being the more strategic business partner. So I'd say we've saved almost kind of 40 hours per week on with our kind of more robust features, using Zaps, not having those automated instead of just kind of doing those manually. But I think it's also allowed us to kind of scale on top of that and build more kind of more nuanced analyses.
And you're touching on this other use case that we spoke about, which I think is really interesting. I'd love to dig into it around the financial modeling and analysis and reporting that you're doing and how Zapier has helped there. Before we dig into how that all works, could you talk a little bit about maybe some of the problems or challenges that you were all facing around the financial reporting side of things?
Yeah, so I'd say it's reporting and then also just the actual modeling as well. I think we went from, the SeatGeek finance team just started in 2015. The company was already 6-7 years in existence. And so we came in and the company didn't know about finance, and we had to kind of explain kind of the value add that we were bringing. So I think the first year or two, it was just kind of the finance team working on kind of these offline Excel files that only we edited, and we would push out updates once a month. And I think over the years we developed that to be much more collaborative. So going from the number of budget contributors from, let's say, 5 to 10 people to 50 to 75 people. So we really kind of leveraged the G Suite to kind of bring everything within Google Sheets. Now we have some additional tools on top of that. And once you move to a model infrastructure that used to have 5 files to now it has over 50 files, and you're thinking about how do you move that data? How do you keep that data up to date? That's where we started to really tap Zapier to help us move that data around.
Gotcha. So you're now in a spot where you are helping all of these various teams understand the financial impact or the ways that they can make decisions using financial data. But then there's this huge burden on you all to keep 50 different spreadsheets up to date. Can you talk a little bit about, can you talk about how Zapier helped with that problem?
Yeah, definitely. So I think some of the, one type of recipe or Zap that we've, scaled up many times is we have this business intelligence tool Looker that, sits on top of our various databases. Those get updated, through different ETL batches, hourly, some, every 24 hours. So we always want to get, that has our more, every transaction that happens on SeatGeek, we want to know, did it happen on an iPhone app, which version, where was this person when they bought it, what was the kind of marketing attribution to it. So we go in and we grab that data through a webhook, and then we pass it through Zapier into a Google spreadsheet, and whatever, if we need to have that updated, some things need to be updated every hour, some things it's just needs to get updated overnight. So we kind of have the view of yesterday, updated view from yesterday when we get in the morning. So we have those Google Sheets generate on that schedule whenever we'll throw a delay or a schedule feature within the Zap. And then we have the other financial models pick up that data from that spreadsheet using some of Google's native array and import range functions.
Gotcha. So you've got Looker, which is this tool for reporting on and visualizing data, but it can be a bit technical to use. Is that?
Well, it's great. So imagine it's great at having dashboards and scheduling those dashboards, but you can kind of look at that data and say, hey, great, we sold X dollars yesterday. That's great on a chart, but what does that mean for tomorrow? How does that fit into the forecast? What were we projecting? So it's more built to view information and not really be a financial tool.
Mm. So Looker is showing you what happened, and you have these financial models living in spreadsheets that are showing you, maybe projections out into the future or other financial models. And there's not just one, there's 50 different ones because there's different teams that need different information. Is that?
Right.
Yeah.
So we want it to be very collaborative, but also follow some of the security principles of not allowing every group to have access to all the information. So imagine different kind of intersections of data, kind of giving kind of security principle of kind of least right to access. So we want to give the marketing team all the data that they need, but they don't necessarily need to know about the hiring pipeline for the enterprise business. And then we're protective of some other information more like salaries and things to do with personnel.
That's great. That makes sense. So using Zapier to take the data that is in Looker, moving it into these different spreadsheets so that people can understand and make decisions sort of like on the fly. And that's all happening behind the scenes. These sort of consumers of that information aren't needing to go in and do that work manually.
I think the other thing, as we are a finance group, but we don't have a explicit business operations group or a strategy group. So I think we've also tried to have the organization be more efficient, and that's where some of the other kind of workflow automations that we've set up. I think we've also leveraged some of the more recent Zapier features to go in and look at emails and to parse certain things out to get much more nuance on how that information flows through the org. So even there isn't so we use a financial application called NetSuite. So when certain things happen in there, like that change in the data model, we get a certain email alert, and then we can kind of route that to different people on certain things that need to happen. And I think onboarding and offboarding is something, SeatGeek's gone from 100 people when I joined to closer to 500 now, and hopefully 1,000 sometime in the future. We need to get a lot better at onboarding and offboarding people. So we also kind of look into various email alerts on, hey, if there was a new account sign up, let's send direct that person to a certain wiki article, or kind of route or send certain information to them. So that's another thing that we've been able to automate with Zapier as well.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And so just to go back and looking at everything that you've set up inside of Zapier, can you talk a little bit about like, maybe for folks who might be new to Zapier, how would you describe the value you get from using Zapier? What has been the impact for SeatGeek?
Yeah, I would say if you find, I think a lot of organizations and other people I've talked to have similar problems where there's with premium business models with SaaS applications, you have data going everywhere. People can kind of sign up and self-serve for a lot of that. But if you find yourself doing something that is repeatable, there's probably a way to automate that. And I'm sure everyone, especially now, is even more stretched on staffing. And now, more than any other time, being as automated as you can is very important. And Zapier is a great tool that you could, there's no 30-day implementation. There's no 6-figure, 7-figure, annual costs that's going to come onto your books. It's a great way to start automating on that first day. It's super intuitive. You kind of click on the applications you want, and a lot of the stuff's just already pre-built for you to get going.
That's great. That makes sense. When we talked, you talked about a challenging situation you had maybe a year or so ago, where there was a power user of Zapier, or somebody who was very active on Zapier, and they left your organization. Can you talk a little bit about some of the pain points that have, maybe in that scenario, or some of the other pain points that have come before you started using Zapier for companies?
Yeah, I think we've worked a lot on succession planning, and I think we've learned how Zapier works better, much more over the last few years. I think, frankly, a lot more features have come out. I think when we started, we had think 5 different groups each kind of came to the conclusion that Zapier was a great tool, and they were kind of using it on their own. Some on free plans, some on some premium plans. And I think probably sometime last year the company plan came out. So I think that was a great segue for us to really make this what we call a birthright tool within SeatGeek. So if anyone who wants access to it can have access to Zapier. And I think it's allowed us to be much more security focused. And then now we know that through Zapier's native tools, for example, if one of our power users leaves, there's some pretty simple workflows to kind of transfer those workflows to other people.
That's great. Yeah, so SeatGeek was one of the first companies to actually upgrade to the Zapier for Companies plan last year. I'm wondering if you could, share any more about what motivated you there. You shared a few things, but anything else that went into that decision?
I think we, try to keep a pretty close eye on, the vendors that are coming, onto the books at SeatGeek, and always look for, hey, are there more efficient ways we can do this? I think one thing we saw with Zapier is, hey, we've got 5 different teams using this. We're sharing data. Let's kind of consolidate this into a one account that everyone can use. And then the 2 extra great features, I think Zaps run even faster on the company plan. It could update every minute if you want. And then also, I think security has been a much bigger focus for SeatGeek, as we've gone from just a few dozen people to hundreds of people. So I think the velocity of people coming into SeatGeek and leaving SeatGeek is much faster. And we needed a way to help with those onboarding and offboarding plans to just have it connected back to our single sign-on provider. So it's very easy onboarding, getting people onto Zapier, and then we have that peace of mind knowing that, hey, this is a tool that connects into many different sensitive systems. So on the offboarding side, knowing that once someone is offboarded, that they no longer have access to the application as well, has been great for our IT team.
Those are great. Well, this has all been super helpful, and I know the audience has some questions for you. I'm going to we'll take a quick look at some of the features that you just talked about on the company plan. I'm going to share my screen again, and then we'll meet back on video chat in a second to answer questions from the audience. So I'm going to we can stop our videos for a second, and then I'm going to share my screen, and I'll just take folks through that. So a couple of the features that Teddy mentioned. One aspect of the Zapier for Companies plan is that it helps you get all the right people the right access. And so there's 2 features that let you do this. SAML single sign-on. SAML single sign-on allows you to manage all your company's users from one centralized location. That could be G Suite or Okta, OneLogin, and if I didn't mention one of your single sign-on provider, there's still a good chance that we support it because we support any identity provider that uses SAML, SAML. The other feature that goes sort of hand in hand with this is user provisioning. And what user provisioning allows you to do is add people, remove people as they sort of onboard or leave your organization, and then also makes it easy to group them into teams. And so, as Teddy talked about, having this when all of your financial reporting is sort of being powered by Zaps in the background, making sure you have that continuity is going to be really important. And so when somebody leaves your company and maybe they were, very active in Zapier and they have a lot of Zaps they created, the company plan makes it really easy for you to just transfer those Zaps to the person that should have them. And so, yeah, while we're on the topic of adding and removing team members, I just want to take a moment to point out the fact that Zapier for Companies doesn't charge by seat. You can add as many people as you like to your company plan at no additional cost. The next feature that Teddy spoke to is getting your team together. So there was this scenario where there was multiple people that had already identified that Zapier was a good fit for their different teams, but they were all paying for different accounts. And so Zapier for Companies makes it really easy for you to consolidate all of your accounts in one place. And you can do this just by verifying all the domains that you own. And then we'll show you all the people that have accounts on Zapier, and you can very easily merge them all into one single organization on Zapier. So just to reiterate a few of the talking points that we covered today, in terms of the pain points that SeatGeek was experiencing, there's this, I love the use case around financial modeling, and the scaling that was just very time consuming. Having this source of truth when you have so many different SaaS applications can be hard to identify. And then the need to have business continuity when people leave and join, and they have been the ones to set up automations. And so Zapier helps in a few different ways here. We make it easier. Zapier for Companies makes it easy to collaborate on Zaps in your account across different teams. In SeatGeek's example, it was finance and marketing, but it could be any team in your organization. It makes it easy to consolidate your accounts in one place, and then also makes it so that you can transfer Zap ownership when people leave or join your company. And then the security features like single sign-on or user provisioning make it easy to make sure that the right people have access to the right thing. And then just a couple points here are things, Teddy, you mentioned around, Zapier sounds like it saves you about 40 hours per week. It's enabled you to do things that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to do with financial analysis. And then more time to just focus on that higher order or higher value collaborative work. And then of course, Zapier for Companies has provided that security, control over security features that you've needed as your company has grown and your usage of Zapier has grown. So with that, Teddy, just want to thank you for having that conversation with me. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Katie, who's going to help facilitate some of these Q&A from the audience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris and Teddy. That was awesome. We do have a few questions here, but if you have any other questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll try our best to answer them. Okay, so this first question, it might be for both of you, might just be for Chris, but and you might have already covered this, but which apps are the best for reporting in general? Do you guys have specific ones that you prefer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, Teddy, I'm curious to hear what your answer would be. We also use Looker in terms of integration with Zapier. There is a great integration in which you can use Looker on top of whatever data set that you have, create and generate reports. And then those reports can be sent via a webhook, like Teddy talked about, into Zapier, which can enable you to do all sorts of different automations. So, Teddy, you were talking about using it to power your financial models. We've used it for other things like recruiting folks for customer interviews or scheduling sales calls or things like that. So lots of different ways that you can use reporting tool like Looker. Are there any other reporting tools, Teddy, that you have used on the regular basis that you'd recommend to the audience?
Yeah, I'd say different groups. You're reporting in different ways. I think the G Suite's been the most useful for kind of real customized and ad hoc reports. I think most of our other reporting, we use Adaptive Insights for a lot of other financial modeling and reporting. And then I think native within each one of our other enterprise apps, whether it be Salesforce or NetSuite, each specific group kind of runs the reports that they need as well.
Awesome.
Great. This question is for you, Teddy. Has SeatGeek automated some of their customer support follow-up tasks through Zapier, specifically thinking of mentions and direct messages on social media?
Yeah, I think our customer experience org has evolved a ton over time. I think that we use Zendesk mainly, and I think their app marketplace has really evolved over time. I think at certain points we have had some workflows where we have used Zaps to kind of track some of those follow-ups. I think as far as you know, the very detailed nature of how those are done specifically, I'm not as familiar with. But
Right.
if you kind of, you know, talk to some of the other hosts to forward contact info, I could, you know, certainly route you to the right person at SeatGeek to talk to.
Great. Okay, this one might be for you, Chris. We recently had a few people who set up our Zaps leave the company. Is there a way we could use the company features to bring those under one umbrella?
Yeah, definitely. So you can, with the company account, you can verify any domains that you own. And what that will allow you to do is see for that domain, who at that company or who at that domain has an account on Zapier, and you can use that to identify all of those folks and then wrangle them into the company account. Be happy to schedule a demo with any folks that are interested in that, show you firsthand how that would work. I believe there'll be a link in an email to follow up with that at the end of after this webinar. Yeah.
Great. All right. So let's see here. Okay, this is for you, Teddy. How did you figure out your own use case? I'm having trouble figuring out how to know what I can do with Zapier. I think to clarify, they're asking how you kind of recognize the right spots in your org to use Zapier. Yeah,
so I think for me, it's first it'd be, are there any pain points that you're seeing? And I think, you know, I saw, you know, with the financial models, with our CRM, with some other systems, the pain points we're having. Then I think it would be good just to, even if you have a free Zapier account, looking at the app gallery or the recipe gallery and seeing, hey, is there like already a pre-built connection from, you know, app A to app B? You know, there probably is. There are probably already some recipes out there that have already been built by people. And then, you know, for some of the other workflows, I think some workarounds that we've said, like, hey, can you generate certain data on a schedule or in an automated way out of a system? Because if you can get an email sent, you know, with certain keywords, you can kind of, you know, grab that data and do something with that as well. So I think even if you don't kind of see, for example, like a native recipe or a zap for your use case, there is still probably a way that you can kind of solve that pain point through the email feature.
Awesome. Okay. Here's one about Stripe. Can we automate with Zapier through Stripe to give reports on new customers making their first, second, third payments on subscription plans? It's kind of specific, but.
Yeah, we definitely have an integration with Stripe, and that scenario you're describing is something that we've seen customers do. So yeah, definitely something that we can support. And if you have any trouble with it, definitely feel free to reach out to our support team. We'd be more than happy to help you set up that first app.
Great. And then this one's for you, Teddy, another sort of specific question, but are you using Zapier Paths, and have you experienced any limitations or opportunities with it?
Yeah, I think we aren't using, I'd say our Zaps, I think, are a little more on the simple side. I think we've spent a lot of time kind of transforming and kind of wrangling that data before it hits the Zap, that we haven't needed to do a lot of that conditional logic. But outside of that, I guess I'll just kind of leave it there. I'd say the number of steps, I'd say, kind of usually range from kind of 3 to 5 steps, and then we try to have kind of as clean of a data set going into Zapier instead of doing kind of some of the heavy lifting once it gets into Zapier.
Okay, great. Okay, another question. I want to strengthen my Zapier coding knowledge. Is there a channel, web page where I can learn how to use Zapier better? That is a good question. We do have a YouTube channel that has a lot of our Zapier 101 videos on it. And Lori, who's answering questions, can also include a few links that show you how to get started with Zapier if you want any more in detail tutorials. All right. Okay, I think that's all the questions we have. A few questions have come in about will this be recorded? And yes, we have recorded this webinar and we'll be sending it out to you afterwards alongside a link that you can use to sign up for our live demo of Zapier for companies if you should choose. All right, with that, I want to thank Teddy and Chris so much for a great informative webinar, and I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday. Thanks you guys.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.